Okay, now we get to do something I've always wanted to do, something I've been wanting to try to experiment with, and I haven't. Now, I spared you the B-roll of watching me put tape on here. I mean, I just put tape on the fretboards. It's what I'm going to do next that is going to make the difference here. So, as you know, we've got the Wenge fretboard, and there's something you could do with Wenge where you bleach the wood, and you literally use chlorine bleach. We are literally using Clorox. And I've always wanted to do this. I'm going to give it a shot. So carefully pour that in there. And I'm just going to take an acid brush. I'm just going to carefully work it onto parts I want to bleach. And it's really cool working with this Naima, being the first model. We can experiment with things here. And it's even more cool that Vernon wasn't so concerned about having front face markers on the fretboard anyway. So if this goes bad, we could just dye the whole thing black and no one would ever know. Well, the thing is, as you could see, the results are not instant. So I'm hoping I won't get results at all. That brush is pretty well saturated. I don't need to dip anymore. So apparently you don't need this much, or at least I don't think we do. Probably just a capful for one fretboard would be plenty. But we're going to find out if this even works at all. Essentially, from what I've seen, guys who have bleached Wenge before, and if you want to open up another browser and Google it now, you can. Let's see. And go backtrack a little. As long as it's saturated and wet, even if it's saturated and wet with bleach, it's still going to make the wood look darker where it's saturated and wet. So I think to see the actual effect, we're going to have to wait until it dries, because I'm looking at the pieces that have dried already and they actually look pretty good. I really want you guys to see this. This is really looking cool. And with any luck, what we'll have is contrasting frets for where we normally have fret markers. Instead of the markers themselves, we'll just have the wood. But it'll look like I inlaid a different wood in there, even though it's not. Okay, so now that that's getting saturated pretty well, what I'm going to do is come through the razor and just give it some scrapes. This is a step that probably isn't necessary, but I'm doing it anyway. Tell you what, it's not necessarily turning it white, but it really gives it that old age barnwood gray color going on. It looks pretty cool. I'm going to come one more time with the brush and let it sit. Now the fret slot should be enough to protect from fret to fret. Anything that overruns the edges will probably run down in the fret slot, so I don't have to worry about accidentally bleaching the other frets. But I am trying to be as careful as possible anyway, because I'm not sure how effective the masking tape is even going to be. Alright, so there we go. I'm just going to let that sit and see what happens. You know, it's the beauty of experimentation. You may learn that this wasn't a good idea at all. And we may learn that this is something I'll be doing in the future. We won't know. It's that time of day, time for me to go pick up the boys from school. So while I'm letting that rest, letting this evaporate out, it's a warm enough day. Hopefully it will do all the work for me. and I'll come back and see what we got. All right, so there it is though. It does look different, you know, and I'm looking at the monitor part of the camera, and actually I see more of a difference, a contrast there than I'm looking down on it. Now, some of this I think is still wet, is why it's not quite there yet. Let's get a scupper pad and see what happens. Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Look at that. Wow, that is cool.